All right, welcome to In Conversation with my gorgeous friend, Asia Clark, coming from Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you again so very much for joining me.
No problem. Thanks for dealing with all the postponements.
Well, look, I know that this is a really difficult time at the moment with everything that's going on. And I guess, you and I have been friends long enough that we can call each other good friends.
Yes,
And, I was thinking the other day that in all the time that we've known each other, with thanks to Ashley Campbell, props, thanks, Ash,
that's right.
um, in that,
What's up, Ashley?
yeah, and that race has never been a topic of conversation between us. And
True.
be it right or wrong, I've never seen like race. And I feel like, is that missing the whole point? Have I been missing the whole point? Because is this now a time, or should it have been a time to acknowledge race? Because I feel that me saying, oh, I don't see race and I see everyone as equal, perhaps that is missing the point, because my life in contradiction to your life, what your ancestors have faced, what you face currently, and what perhaps you'll face in the future is in contradiction to what I would face now in the future. So is being colorblind the wrong thing to be?
Um, so being colorblind, um, in a sense, is not being aware of your privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I say this in an educational sense
Yeah.
because when you say things like "I don't see race" or "I don't see color," honestly, it's one, it's a privilege to say that because
Yeah.
we don't get the we don't get the privilege to exist in that.
Yeah.
That is our that is our identity, and that strips us of that when you say
Yeah.
that. It also strips us of the things that we've been through,
Yeah.
um, and it's it's one of the many things that white people are while you guys mean good when you say it, it's a detrimental thing to say.
Got you.
You
And
know,
that's why that was, really my first question, because finding that safe space or that placement in which to know how you feel. I mean, in
yeah,
specifically, you and I have been out with a group of girlfriends, at wineries and all sorts of places, and you have been the one woman of color in our group, and
yeah,
never has that been acknowledged. And maybe that is the wrong thing. So I'm here to learn and listen and pipe down, basically, and really learn from your perspective in specific. Because, and I said to you, I put up a post, I think when all of this started, which was when I was a kid, I was obsessed with dolls of color, like literally obsessed.
hmm
My parents had to import dolls of color because I loved them so much. And then I thought, you know what? That post, I just made it about me. And this is not my story to tell at
yeah.
all. And saying that I was, a 3-year-old that wanted black dolls is just ludicrous. And after I posted it took me literally maybe 10 seconds. And I was like, hand to, forehead, and deleted it. And I was like, this really is not my story. I have not experienced this on any
Yes,
level. This is your
yes.
story. So perhaps you could delve into what are your feelings currently?
Um, my feelings currently are, they come with a lot of pain because I have experienced a lot of racism
Can
in
you
my
give
lifetime.
examples?
Um,
If you feel comfortable.
Sure. I mean, there, without being willing to divulge those things, people just are, really unaware. Like, I grew up, with, being called a nigger and, uh, having to deal with teachers, so white teachers treating me differently, just based upon the way that I look, or like you know, like my mom being fired when we would come to the holiday parties, and like one specific thing was like I had a friend,
Mm-hmm.
and this was like in elementary school. I had a friend, and I remember he was getting in a fight with this white kid,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember I defended my friend. He was a black kid. I defended him,
Yeah.
and I remember the white kid yelled at me and called me a nigger because I mean, I don't know why. I don't know when it happened that he had called my friend that, but he had called me that because I jumped into the fight.
Yeah.
You know, I have like when I was coming out of a street one night in Mount Juliet here, in Tennessee, and I had my hair all the way out. And my hair is a really big fro a
Yeah.
lot of times when I let it out. And the cop was going to go, he was, so I guess he's facing me, he was turning right. And I was turning in the opposite direction. So he was going, his blinker was going to go this way.
Yeah.
Well, I turned and his headlights hit my window, my driver's side window, and, basically lit up
Yeah.
my hair. You know what I mean? And he automatically jumped behind me. But I mean, like, to the point where, so I go down this little road, and to the point where he put his headlights into, like, all that was filled in the cabin of my car was his headlights.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was so close to my car. And I'm assuming that was to read my license plate. I don't know if it was to scare me.
Right.
I'm assuming to read my license plate and run it to see if I had any warrants so he could pull me over. But his main reason for following me was because I had an afro. There was nothing else. I didn't do anything wrong. I had I had my turning signal on. You know what I mean? I was at a full stop at the stop sign. So he just figured that he probably could get something out of the black person he just saw turn in the opposite direction. And once he realized that nothing was coming off of my license plate, he literally full brake stops and flips a U-ey and just drives off in the opposite direction.
Wow. Right. And do you feel like, obviously you're living in a southern state, right?
Oh yeah.
So notoriously the South has had, a reputation, shall we say, for racism in particular throughout the US. Obviously, we're talking, this is it's a global conversation now, even in Australia in terms of our Indigenous Australians. And that was a conversation that also needed to be had. So I feel like it's, George Floyd in particular has sparked this. But the thing that saddens me is it's taken one man, or of course Breonna Taylor. There's been many before that, but what has sparked, in particular with George Floyd, why do you feel like it's taken that instance for this to blow?
I think that because of the savagery and the joy that came, like when it happened, I showed a coworker at the hospital that I'm at, I showed her the stills. We didn't even watch the video because I knew that it would bring me to a boiling anger and tears.
It brought me to my knees. Honestly, I was sobbing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, but just look at the stills of the face of the cop. He
Mm-hmm.
had almost joy, on his face. It was like a smirk as he's taking the life of this man.
Yeah.
And when I showed her this, she's also a Black woman. When I showed her this, she was like, that hurt me all the way to my soul. Like it was disgusting to see the joy on his face as he's removing the life of this man. And I was like, you don't even have to watch the video. You just the stills
It
of
was
his
blatant
face.
disregard. It was, yeah.
He was absolutely enjoying himself.
Mm-hmm.
He had no issues about being reprimanded or caught. He on his face said, this is what I'm okay with. Like, I know I can do this, and I know I can get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then just watching this man's life be extinguished
Mm-hmm.
on camera with all of the other lives that we are not, everybody's saying, well, what about, I always hear the black on black crime thing.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
I
I did
mentioned,
see a video of that the other day of was a gentleman, if we call him that, but was driving his car and he was spewing, statistics, black death on death, statistics out his car. And I was like, well, that's missing the point as well, because it's,
well, bottom line is, one, when anything like that happens, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get justice from that. Somebody's going to be arrested. There's going to be, also, there's no such thing as that. Crime happens within the, the vicinity of who you live, I'm saying, like the community that you live in. So if you're living next to other Black people, that's who you're going to commit the crimes with.
yeah.
White people are going to commit crimes within the community of the white people that they live with.
Absolutely.
They're not going to drive across town to go commit crimes with Black people.
Yeah.
You don't hear about Hispanic on Hispanic crime, Asian on Asian crime, white on white crime. The only reason that they say Black on Black crime is so that they can continue to put us in the monster's light.
Yeah.
The monstrous light, to make us look like we're evil people so that they can keep us underneath their thumb. It's a system that has been set up since they couldn't keep us in slavery. They had to figure out a way to keep us under their boot. And it amazes me how little research people do with having all of this in their face, recording videos, confessions. I mean, you have a FBI building named after a man who made a statement. Like his mantra was, the worst thing that could happen to America is the unity of the Negro. And yet you named the FBI building after J. Edgar Hoover.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but we celebrate monsters in this country. We celebrate genocide. We celebrate the fact that this country is profited off of genocide, enslavement. Yeah. They don't atone for anything they've ever done, but they go out to other countries and they demand that they do. Mm-hmm. Germany has to atone. Let's never forget the Holocaust, which I agree, because my grandfather and them are displaced Jews. So, fine. Yeah. But what about our Holocaust that we're continuing to live?
Yeah.
The 13th, you can watch that. Just Mercy, you can watch that. There's the Innocence Project for a reason.
Yeah.
Because there are, it's easier to convict Black people. They literally admitted on tape that they knew you couldn't make being Black illegal and you couldn't make being a hippie illegal. So they vilified us on the news. They created a fake war on drugs. They're admitting it, but nobody.
Yeah.
They assassinated the Black Panthers, which by the way, The Black Panthers were for unity of the people, white people, black people, brown people against the government. They wanted the government to be for the people, fear the people, and work for the people. But J. Edgar Hoover's main mission was to make sure that there was not a black messiah that would unite all people of color or non-color. Right. And that's what the Black Panthers were doing. They had free lunch programs. They had, the health care programs. They were all about it. They were working with hillbillies in the mountains.
Yeah.
But see, if people would watch the Vanguard to the Revolutions, they would watch the documentary of how they attacked them and tried and and basically ran their name into the ground so that people would think they were some kind of hate group. They weren't.
Yeah.
They wanted you, me, all of us to work together against the government. Right. But they don't push that about them. They just, it amazes me how little research people actually do, and they just believe what is fed to them.
Yeah.
By these 1%ers.
It was 5 years ago when I was living in Tennessee, and I was going to Memphis, and I took it upon myself to go to sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. I've got so many things running through my head in the conversation. But went to the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis because I wanted to try and educate myself. I wanted to understand. It was the quietest day. It was the middle of winter. No one was there. Like, the streets were dead, talking dead. And I remember someone at the time was like, "Why would you want to go there? Like, why are you going there? You're a white Australian girl. Like, what's the point?" Like, that mentality of not even, why would you want to educate yourself in understanding a people that have been suppressed for such a very long time. There just wasn't even that acknowledgement of, okay, like, good on you, of going to try and understand, to learn about that perspective, to see that. And so that really, it was disheartening for me at the time. But I feel like there isn't that motivation up until now, when you have social media and people want to, quote unquote, jump on a bandwagon to be part of the conversation because it's in vogue. And that was something that I was always really conscious of, because I don't want to be like, well, this is a big thing and so many people are speaking about it, so of course I should be part of the conversation. It's not about that. It's about, this is a poignant time in history that I believe constructive dialogue does have a place, as opposed to posting. So what's your perspective on white people like myself, or anyone that isn't of the Black community, posting? Like, is that enough? And where do you stand on, should we post, should we not post, should we?
I mean, you should. I absolutely think that people that are not of the Black community should post, but they should post things from the Black community. You know, what I think is that, don't, when I say from our community, post the views, the pain, the information from our community. Don't go pulling things from Martin Luther King Jr. that you agree with, that you think are, within line of your opinion on how things should be, because in a sense, it's not about that. You know what I mean? It's about what's actually, what people are actually going through, have been through, and what's going on right now. Because when you try to, like, I saw, like, a video I made where I saw, like, because I saw people posting like, oh, Martin Luther King Jr. is about love, and I'm like, true, but he was also talking about how, the white moderate that refuses to take a stand on one side of the line or the other is really the biggest stumbling block of the black people, because at least we know where the KKK stands. This lukewarmness, this like, oh, well, let's just not right now. Let's not protest like that. Let's not do this. Let's, because they don't want to come out of their, their comfort zone. They don't want to be uncomfortable. That's why we are still doing this, because it's going to take white people to end racism.
Yeah.
Period. It's our disease.
How do you see it being able to be remedied? And is that even the right word to use? It's such a difficult conversation because, where does it start to end?
It starts to end with white people.
Yeah.
Because it started with white people.
Yeah.
So it starts to end with white people, because white people need to be tired of white people's bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, they need to, be flat out telling them, listen, we're not going to have a racist president. We're not going to have a president that divides, whether or not they like his finance part or whatever, he divides.
Yeah.
And his actions show that. And they need to be, if you're going to be a friend that's like, I don't think Black Lives Matter, all lives, well, then you know what? I'm going to try to educate you. And if you're not going to, grasp onto the fact that all lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter, then we can't, what I'm saying? They need to start making it not acceptable, like, because some, a lot of
it's got to come from like reform or a change in legal system to filter that through, because you can change a mentality of a people, but nothing changes unless the government, I guess, of that country, if you're living in a civilized world, changes certain laws that are in place that are perhaps in the past suppressed, that have, not been in line with equality, all that type of thing. So do you have any examples of laws that you feel need to be shifted that will slowly start to change that narrative, or will quickly change that narrative?
I mean, they need to reform the police first and foremost, because they, the police came from the whole reason of the police, was to be slave patrol.
Right.
And then, you have not really much changed with that. You have what I guess what was astounding to me was when the NYPD stepped up, which is one of the most corrupt police departments in the United States of America. You have Chicago PD, you have the LAPD, and then you have the NYPD.
Mm-hmm.
Your top three, that's saying something,
Mm-hmm.
You have the profiling,
just
allowed to, say because, you look like you're going to do something, that's directly aimed at us. Always has been.
Yeah, it's like a target. It's like having a target on
right.
You. Yeah.
So that's got to, what I'm saying? That's got to go. The filtering of us into the prison system. You know what I mean? You can watch that on the 13th.
Yeah.
The 13th Amendment.
Yeah.
That is just a loophole.
Yeah.
To continue to the cycle of enslavement. But it's all there.
And where like in terms of the spread of wealth, because obviously the US, it's a wealthy country. There's no denying that, wealthy country. Right. The funds being dispersed through the country that are, like in the 13th, they say, well, if you're in a zone where it's the taxes on the housing, so whatever the housing taxes are, that goes into the school, right? So if you're living in an area that the housing's, the prices are low, whatever goes into the school is less. And it just happens that it's, always in communities of color that
That's on
the
purpose.
housing price is down, and then the schools are lesser quality. So how does that shift?
Well, I mean, one, what they're doing now, they're defunding the police so that they can't run around with tanks and military uniforms and all that stuff, because they don't need it.
Yeah.
They're not, we're not in some, third world guerrilla country where they're, fighting some kind of militia every day. It's mind numbing how much extra money they have, and they're not even well trained. I hear the veterans that I deal with talk about the training that they should have. I mean, they, like, in war, like, they can't even shoot back at somebody, like, shooting at them.
Yeah.
And with these, in like 6 months training, like, so one, we're taking care of it right now as long as they go forth with it of defunding the police. I mean, they defunded schools.
Yeah.
They defunded the arts.
Yeah.
Like, it's time. It's time to take all this extra money that they're obviously not doing well with anyway, obviously, and they're putting it back into the communities of color.
Yeah.
I mean, they need to pay teachers more. Teachers are dealing with a lot these days. They need to make the schools better, because our future, how do these kids not know who the vice president is, what the capital of a state is?
That blows my mind.
I'm just,
I feel like Australian curriculum, aside from not acknowledging our own Indigenous culture as much as it should, which I believe will be addressed, or I hope it will be addressed. But the funny thing is, we were taught about your history in school. We were taught about European history. The Australian curriculum is really quite extensive. So I'm proud of it from that standpoint. And it always blew my mind that sometimes in the US schools, it's been lacking in education in terms of history and in terms of acknowledging what their past has been.
Yeah.
We were talking about the education system and what you're taught in school and what you're not taught in school, and how that sort of filters down into the mentality.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's, like, I can say, as far as history, it's his story. It's not real.
Yeah.
They don't teach it correctly because they don't want to hold that mirror up.
Mm-hmm.
So they make it, they sugarcoat it. Oh, the natives and, the pilgrims. Nah, it didn't go down like that.
Yeah.
It was so gruesome, and not like, let's share, Thanksgiving was a massacre. Like, they don't tell all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then you got to learn about it later on. It's really horrible how this country has, like, covered up their Holocaust. They have multiple.
Yeah.
Of people of color.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
So where do we go to from here?
Well, I think that people of color, including natives and Black people, and, even, white people, like, they need to stop telling us that we have to celebrate your holiday. We're the only people, Black people, let's just put it like this first and foremost. We need to get back in touch with the identities that were stolen from us. We're the only people that don't know who we are, where we come from, and what our names were before we were ever forced to take upon.
Do you have any idea what your background is? Like, if you traced it back?
Yeah, we traced it. So far, we traced it back. We haven't gotten to exactly the tribes yet, but we traced it back to Nigeria and the Congo.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I do know that my grandmother's grandfather was actually owned here in Tennessee on a slave plantation.
Wow.
Yeah, so we found that out. But I'm
So
going
your
to do my
great grandfather?
yeah, he was owned here. So it's my grandmother who's still alive. She'll be 93 this October. Her grandfather, he was owned here in Tennessee.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I'm going to do a couple swabs on my dad, and that'll lead us directly to the exact tribes that we come from over in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to that because I plan on making a trip back to both of those, because we'll actually find out when you do 2 swabs. AfricanAncestry.com is the only heritage site that actually finds out the exact tribes that you come from.
Amazing.
All the other heritage sites just kind of stop at the general area.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but they're the only ones that take you right down to the tribe, the name, they'll tell you the kind of tribe they were, like,
amazing.
It's really dope.
Yeah.
But I mean, up until now, there was no way for us to find out, like,
yeah,
everything was stolen from us. Everything was wiped out. You know what I'm saying? Like, we weren't allowed to know because they didn't want us trying to go back.
Yeah. And so,
it's like,
what is your stance on the movement? Like, when this movement dies down, because inevitably they always do, like, that's fact, we go through these social media booms, but how do we keep that conversation going? How do we, when it does simmer, where do we go to?
I don't think that this is going to simmer until there's change. I think that this is I think that this was the big boom.
Mm-hmm.
I think people, we're tired of, of our children being murdered, of our brothers and husbands and, sisters and, not coming home, being violated, and, with the whole, like, of people justifying it, like, well, if you would just, like, justifying our own murders with, well, but then, when something happens on the other end of it, for an example, they brought up the police officer that was, that happened on May 25th, I believe. And they were like, well, what about that? And I was like, so at 8 p.m., they had both of those suspects in custody the night it happened. Yeah. And I was reading this off on June 1st. I was like, here it is, June 1st. I'm sorry? Was this the Breonna Taylor you're talking about? No. Breonna Taylor, they had the case closed. They were going to railroad her boyfriend. They were charging him with felony attempted murder. Had we not heard about it, they had everything in place to lie and get away with murdering her in her sleep and breaking and entering into her home with an illegal warrant. That warrant was illegal because it was established in 1995 that blanket warrants weren't allowed for no-knock. Like, you had to establish why you needed each individual no-knock warrant. The Supreme Court established that in 1995. Right. And they copy and pasted on 5 separate warrants, basically the same paragraph. And the judge signed off on all 5. So she needs to be held accountable as well for those illegal warrants. They should have never been at her house. They had no reason to be at her house. Yeah. So they broke into her home in plain clothes, and her license to carry boyfriend tried to protect their home. Yeah, of course. And he shot the cop in the leg, and felony attempted murder is above the waist. So they were already lying about trying to charge him with that, one. And then they lied trying to say that they spoke to the postal inspector, and they said that she was getting suspicious packages from this guy that she used to date years and years ago. And he jumped on television real quick and was like, I never met those cops before, and I never said that. And she was never getting any suspicious packages at her house. So they lied about that. Right. They lied about the whole thing. And, nobody paid attention because it was just another Black person. And they spun it correctly. Drugs, Black, who cares? And they didn't. until Ahmaud.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and nobody even realizes that the third person in Ahmaud's murder was singing like a canary, because he thought if he told on the other two, the father and the son, that he would get a lighter sentence. Well, it turns out they chased him with their trucks and hit him with their trucks. So chased him down into a ditch. He almost got out of the neighborhood. The father and the son ran him back up into the neighborhood with their truck. They found Ahmaud's cotton fibers in the bed of the truck of the guy that was recording, and a palm swipe handprint on the side of his truck, because he hit him with his truck and sent him in the direction of his murder. After the son shot him the third time, this is from the mouth of the guy that was recording, because he thought, if I sing and tell it, I'm going to get an easier sentence. Well, when he sent him in the direction to get murdered, after the son shot him the third time, he yelled out, "Fucking nigger." Yeah. But everybody thinks that the good old boy hunting down a black person is over with. They hunted him down with their truck. You know, but see, people aren't really listening to what's really going on.
Yeah.
You know,
it's almost like,
people, you know,
thank God for the world of social media, because.
Well, yeah. Because we wouldn't have known about Breonna without Ahmaud.
Yeah.
They had the case closed, and they were going to railroad her boyfriend with felony murder. Just like Khalif Browder. They had Khalif Browder in jail, basically prison, for almost 3 years, and he was charged with nothing. He did nothing wrong. Black kid in jail, in prison for 3 years. Nobody said nothing. Nobody did anything.
Right.
This happens every day to black people, all the time.
Yeah.
We're criminalized for our skin color, and nobody cares.
People care now.
And they do, but we got to see change. That's why I don't think it's going to simmer down.
Yeah.
You know, George was, you know, the straw.
Yeah.
Because it was there, and we watched for 8 minutes and 46 seconds of him, you know, losing his life on, you know, just on camera, and we're just tired.
Yeah.
We're done. We're done dying.
Hey, I'm with you in you know, right next to you, behind you, in any way, shape or form. That's why I wanted to have this conversation, because again, it's not my story to tell. It's my story to listen, to learn, and to listen to you and how you think we can make that change. And I mean, it's difficult.
Yeah.
I don't.
An important change would be to actually include that history as well. I mean, you know, it shouldn't take an HBO, you know, hero like series to bring out the Tulsa 1921 massacre. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they don't talk about that. That's not in the history books anywhere, about them using army planes to bomb and decapitate World War I black veterans. They don't talk about the World War I black veterans not getting their GI Bills because they were black. They don't talk about hanging the Vietnam veterans in their uniforms because they were black. They, you know, everybody wants you to think there's this unity among military people. There's not. There's not.
Yeah.
I have military family. There's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I understand. Well, I don't.
They treat them horribly.
Yeah.
They treat blacks horribly in the military.
That's heartbreaking, and needs to change. You know, it needs to come from the top, and that's going to be the challenge. You know, now that that you guys are facing, and with an upcoming election in November, I believe it's November. To see.
But they've already started messing with that, making the lines horribly long, messing up that. I mean, the you know, the primary elections that have been going on in certain states. They're already investigating Georgia's.
Wow.
Because of the debacle. So they're already trying to, you know.
Yeah.
So it's not going to simmer down. They're going to.
Yeah. Do you have, you know, just to close it out, because we could talk for hours, and that's, you know, but, and we will, but, you know, do you have hope at the moment? Do you have, you know, that feeling of a revolution? Do you have, or do you not have that feeling at all? And maybe we're incorrect in assuming?
I have days of hope.
Yeah.
And I have days of severe depression.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my little cousin, he just took his life the night before.
What?
He was a Marine veteran. And you know, he was having a lot of, you know, it's, you know,
time.
he was angry about all of this, and you know, military stuff too.
Yeah. Thing people forget about the mental health of people. It's just
he was a young, angry black kid. You know, he's 24. He would have been 25 this month. But you know, they don't realize how much this is weighing on a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'll say we have days of hope, and then we have days of pain.
Yeah.
And it's you know,
it's a roller coaster.
We're trying to be okay. So, you know.
Yeah. Well, do you have any you know, I remember you sent me or you were mentioning some things that we should read, that we should, like, just for everyone out there who does want to educate themselves more. Can you give me some examples before we close it out of, you know, places to either donate to? Do we donate to the NAACP? Do we donate? Do we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are so many to donate to, but I mean, you know, I would say look into your local chapters, local things that are going on where you're at, you know, because, you know, volunteer your time as well, because there are young kids that you know that need help as well. You know, I was a part of Big Brothers Big Sisters, you know. There's, you know, after school programs, especially right now with kids that aren't able to go to school, you know, and I mean, there are, you know, of course there's the NAACP, there's a list on the Black Lives Matter website. I wish I could think of a lot of them off the top of my head right now. But,
I'll put the link in. So,
wonder if I have them listed. Well, no, that's over there. But you know, yeah, I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I know there's plenty of lists, and I mean, I'll list a couple on my Instagram. You know, I'm at Steely's Asia. On AJIA on Instagram. You know, there'll be a link on my bio you can go to that'll have places that you can. But most importantly, you know, be a part of your local chapters. Go, you know, go get your hands dirty. You know, go march. Go, you know, go elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder. Show them that you're there. Don't just pose. Get out there. It's not, you know, don't think that we think every person is racist or we think every cop is a bad cop. It's not. We don't think that. Don't believe that hype. That's not it. You're not in danger to go out there and get your hands dirty and march with us or volunteer with us or, you know, help the kids out or help, you know, Black people out. It's not. There's no. You know what I'm saying? We're not the violent bunch that they portray us to be.
Got you.
We're just trying to actually achieve complete and total freedom and equality.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for being with me today and having, you know, this conversation, because it is a really tough one to have, and particularly tough for you in this time. And I completely understand that, you know, sometimes you might not want to talk about it, and sometimes it's a really heavy day, and I completely understand that. So I'm just so grateful, you know, as a friend to a friend, that you've been able to take this time to have that chat. And, you know, I'll put all the links in and try and have that constructive chat. And again, wasn't my story to tell, so I can't thank you enough. Really.
Not a problem. I'm happy to do it.
You're the best. I'm going to sign off on this, but then we'll have a quick chat. So don't go anywhere.
Okay.